Welcome to Club Akwaaba on Muntu Bantu Digital Narrowcast. The thoughts, views, opinions expressed by the host of this narrowcast are for educational purposes only and may at times become entertaining or nonetheless serious in nature due to the topics we select and cover. We are not exposing, revealing, indicting, or telling you anything other than what's already reported by the big budget mainstream media. We look to shine the light of Baba Mungu by exposing what is done in darkness to light. Enjoy the narrowcast.
Welcome to Club Akwaaba on Muntu Nabantu Digital Narrowcast.
This is Jade Phoenix Rising.
This is your brother Silverback KONGO. Welcome, Jade. It's exciting to be meeting again.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I'm super duper excited about today's message.
Excellent.
Yes.
Today's Narrowcast is which one again? Which one are we doing again?
We are doing a part 2 of mindset. I am super thrilled about today's narrowcast because of Muhammad Ali. He is so inspiring that I honestly couldn't stop thinking about him. I mean, even after the last narrowcast, I'm like, we need to talk more about this man and his mindset because he truly is an inspiration.
Yes. You know, I on the other hand have taken our elder, our ancestor now. I've taken him for granted. But the more Jay talks about him, the more he comes to mind. Memories come to mind, you know? So, and I also had our elder James Fuller, reached out to me and he was giving me his insight on Muhammad Ali. So that was very inspirational for me, actually. I was inspired that it inspired him, you know? Yes.
Yeah, and you know what's in particularly interesting about this particular person, Muhammad Ali, is the fact that we have many champions that are in our life right now as we speak, but many people who have weathered many storms. And you know, whether you are into watching boxing or have been a boxer or have never done it before, there's something about the training that they've endured to get to that moment. Whether they win the fight or not, there's this inner transformation and this inner desire that supersedes like what you expect is going to happen.
Right.
It's almost climactic. And
right.
and what we're seeing is like the tail end of the journey that they've embarked on. And that's why just having that opportunity to speak to someone, it could be your father, it could be your grandfather, it could be someone who used to watch boxing or was a boxer. There's something about their story that's going to be mind-blowing. And so for me as a woman to be able to either watch some of these matches or read about Muhammad Ali's transformation is doing like remarkable positive I don't know, it's like it's just enlightening. That's the word I'm looking for. It has been enlightening.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for every every generation has an hero, has someone who comes along, and I think this is the brilliance of our creator, our father, Baba Mungu. Okay? There's always, in every 10 years or 20 years, however long, comes someone who's skilled in whatever sport or science. All right, we get to see the creativity and the beauty and the essence of our creator expressed through a being. And we cannot take that being for granted because they're only going to be here for a moment. And this is why the scripture says a prophet does not have honor in his hometown, right? Is that the scripture that right? They don't have honor until they are gone, till they're past. Then people start to like, oh, he was a great man. I remember blah, blah, blah. I remember blah, blah, blah. But anyway, before we really begin, family, we've got to first break the ice. We want to pay some bills. We want you guys to support this Narrowcast. So let me give you a visual, and I will be the one interpreting this quote for you, family. Give me a moment. Bam. Okay. Let's make it big. Excellent. I like the visual. Look at this beautiful frame we got here. Okay. Now, is it just a frame? No. We have a beautiful sister. Let's visualize Jade boxing in a ring. Yes. Yes. And let's visualize her become a champion. Now, a champion in whatever arena. Okay? Whatever arena she's in, she's a champion, warrior, queen. Now, in order for you to become a champion or a warrior, there has to be sacrifice, right? So this particular quote says, if it doesn't challenge you, okay, if you're not challenged in your pursuit, whatever pursuit you're in, whether it's to become the best executive, whether it's to become the genius of your class, whether it's to be the best mother, whether it's to be the hero of the community, there's going to be sacrifice. There is going to be sacrifice. And if there is no sacrifice, it's most likely not worth the pursuit. Okay? So anything worthy, anything of value requires you to give up many things. It can be that you need to give up on the relationships that you have. It's going to pull you away from your pursuit. All right, family? So if it does not challenge you, if you're not challenged in your pursuit of whatever happiness, pursuit of success, pursuit of a loved one, pursuit of that wife, if there is no challenge, most likely that pursuit is not worth your time. So if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you, because we're looking to elevate as beings. As Tatanzambi's children, we look to elevate. There's only upward progress. So I say, family, get yourself a hard copy. Put it in your living room. Put it in your bathroom. Put it in your office. Put it in your car. Put it in your child's crib. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Put it where it will remind you. It reaffirms your pursuit, reaffirms your purpose. And so I say, family, get yourself a copy. Right, Jade?
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
Stay inspired.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Let's go back to our base. And so, family, let's get to the full course meal. Let's get to the full course meal. Now, Muhammad Ali was a unique individual. Muhammad Ali in his time, okay, don't let them fool you. In his time, he was not loved. He wasn't loved, especially when he called them out and he told them, man, no Viet Cong. I don't need to go and kill no Viet Cong. Viet Congs don't hate me, okay? Viet Congs don't despise us people here in Americas. So he wasn't about that, quote unquote, let's go to war and go to war with Vietnam. Mm-hmm. No, he wasn't about that. So he stuck on his principles. But even before he became the champion, he wasn't liked. He wasn't liked because he was brash, that he spoke his mind, that he knew that he was going to be the king of boxing, right? Sometimes, family, when you have a vision and you have a purpose, people are not going to like the fact that, especially if you're going to be, if you are in their midst, right? If you started out on the same level as they did, next thing you're moving forward, you're progressing. It's unfortunate that there are people who are going to be jealous of your forward movement, forward progress, as they would say in football. Forward progress on first down. On first down, it's forward progress, right? So, I can see why, Jay, that you are inspired, because that's a masculine side of a man. When a man is ambitious, when a man progresses, when a man has a purpose, women are attracted to that, okay? Because it brings women security. A man who has a purpose provides security. That's the nature, the natural side of things. But Muhammad Ali, our elder, our immortal champion of boxing, was a man who was on a mission. He transformed boxing, because before Muhammad Ali, there was only brute force. When he got into the ring, when two heavyweights got into the ring, there's going to be fireworks, and there's going to be someone leaving the ring, most likely on a stretcher, right? They're either going to get knocked out, or they're going to leave the ring in a stretcher, right? Am I saying that correctly, Jade?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, stretcher. Yeah, you said
stretcher.
That, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, family, boxing is one of the most brutal sport. There's been times when people have left the ring heading to the casket.
I know. Unfortunately, they can get serious concussions.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other the Bronx boxer named Joe Louis, he sent I believe a German boxer to the casket. You know? So we've had deaths. So it's a very, very brutal sport, but it's also very, very it's a very strategic sport. That's why so many people like it, because it requires strategy. Go ahead, Jade. I've held you long enough from speaking.
No, not at all. Not at all. Honestly, you know, there are several ways that I look at Muhammad Ali, and it's not just the fact that he's a man and he's tough and all that stuff. I think that bravado is understood. I mean, it's a wonderful characteristic, but in terms of the mindset, because this is what the Narrowcast is about, not the physical, it's his mind. There's something about perspective. Sometimes, I mean, everyone, you know, I want you to personally think about this yourself. You personally might have siblings or family members that look at you, that someone who knows you, right? When I say knows you, meaning you're not just an acquaintance, but someone who knows you as a family member. And sometimes people look at people's struggles as, oh, you're struggling. Oh, you're going through some tough stuff. Or someone might say, oh, you're just unlucky. You just never seem to get it together. It's like things just never fall into place for you. Others may look at you as you're a failure. I mean, these are the negative concepts of someone describing you. And it's not their problem. They're just looking at you and assessing you and maybe judging you. And the perspective of understanding the fight. When someone gets into the ring, if you carry those thoughts of what someone just said about you into the ring, you have to knock out those words out of your head to focus on what you're doing. You have to disregard the negative concepts or talk about you, and focus on who you believe you are and what you are doing and what you intend to do as you're doing it. Even if you fall, you still need to rise with some understanding of, are you giving up? Are you giving in? Or it's not over? And as you know, as you've known, and as I've shared, the concept of my totem is the phoenix, right? I've had my blows. I literally have had my setbacks. I've had many goals. I've reached for the stars and fell, you know. Not every rocket that makes it into space stays up there. It does come back down, you know, and I am an ambitious woman. But, you know, having ambition and zeal and enthusiasm doesn't mean I necessarily achieve all of those goals. With my ambition and zeal, there can also be naiveness. You know, there also could be poor planning. And when I learn, as I'm still learning about Muhammad Ali, because I was very young when he was in his prime and in his fights. Now, I was born in the 70s, and many of his great fights were in the 70s, but I was very, very young. So reading about it, seeing him on video is great. But when we hear from those who've actually watched the matches live or have insight about boxing, those are like gems. And so even though I'm a woman and, you know, some women are into kickboxing and fighting, I didn't really focus on that sport as my pastime entertainment, you know, form of entertainment. My father was. My father loved boxing. He loved soccer. I mean, which African doesn't like soccer? Or you guys call it football. Who doesn't, you
Football.
know?
That's the correct term, by the way.
The football, who doesn't like football? But my
Hmm
father loved boxing. And there's just something really powerful about Muhammad Ali's self-confidence. And the more I read about some of the things that he said, really highlights what a beautiful mind he had. Now,
Mm.
Silverback just shared how he was the most hated, and for us to not get it twisted, because when he got into the boxing ring, people couldn't wait to see him get knocked out. Like
hmm
people had
Well,
the
well, I would say specifically white people. White people were looking for
to
him to go down.
to,
Yeah.
to go down. Yes.
hmm
And anyone who's ever had a goal and has worked really hard to achieve it, nobody likes failures. And
hmm
as we said in our previous narrowcast about mindset, I mean, imagine getting knocked out on national TV and having your face,
hmm
looking the way it does on the newspaper the next day. Like, who wants to be seen like that?
hmm
But there is something glorious about the rise after the fall. There's something beautiful when you don't give up. And I think that's what I feel sometimes family, sometimes your coworkers, people don't really appreciate, because when someone,
sometimes your partner.
your partner, or even yourself, like, having
hmm
the self-defeated thoughts of, I'm never gonna get over this. I keep making the same mistakes and I don't understand what's wrong with me. Then you
hmm
start agreeing with the people who are not encouraging you the most. And and I don't know too much about Muhammad Ali's coach, but it seems like between the two of them, they did a great job.
hmm
And not just the coach, but when you learn about Muhammad Ali, his spirituality is also enmeshed with his mindset. It wasn't just his physical strength or his strategium, because we could be egotistical and fall on our face. We can say I'm the greatest, and you know it's just all ego and self-serving. But his mindset is attractive, because we when we want something really badly, can learn what it is, especially from a boxer, what it is to take a beating, to fall and rise again. And that's why I said, you know what, we really need to keep talking about him. And I honestly welcome, I want the elders, anyone who's had lived experience with watching him, anyone who has beautiful stories of what you recall, please comment. I mean, call us if you have us on WhatsApp. We want to hear your stories. I want to hear them. My father's no longer living, so I can't get those stories, but I treasure everything, because you elders, you have paved the way. You have lit the way with your torch. Your words of wisdom is like diamonds, it's like gold. And you really need to be the coach to the youth. I think young men more than ever need to hear from you, because you came from an era where you've experienced World War II, you've experienced the Vietnam War, you've seen, as people say nowadays, you've been there, done that. Your wisdom is golden, and if you can be a mentor for your grandchildren, for your, even if your adult children are raising their kids, just to continue to inspire them, so that we can have a stronger mindset in our children, especially the boys. And I think our young men really should learn about Muhammad Ali, because there's so many lessons to learn in terms of that transformation, and not letting outside negative influences and pressure erode your self-esteem and to erode your mindset. Because at the end of the day, we shouldn't be living to appease someone else's opinion, because they're not our God. You know, everyone has an opinion, but not everyone is right. And so in today's Narrowcast, we're going to be sharing some quotes. We're going to be sharing some stories. We're going to be sharing some personal reflections on insights about this. And we also want you to be a part of this Narrowcast by actively sharing some of your thoughts. Maybe you've seen a fight that inspires you. Tell us about it. Maybe you've experienced something, and or maybe one of these quotes resonates deeply with you. We'd love you to share that with us, but most importantly, we want you to share that with your community, because I think we're living in a time where people are feeling very insecure, you know, with their careers, with the choices that they've made, or perhaps maybe even how they might feel like they're not progressing because we're in a recession and they don't know what to do. So inspiring people to not give up is very, very important. And that's all I want to say about that. But we will continue, as we say, let's get into the main meal, as Silverback shares.
Mm-hmm.
So Silverback, you know, prior to us starting the Narrowcast, we started talking a little bit about Muhammad Ali's childhood. And you had a interesting little story about that. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. Muhammad Ali has, like I was telling you, he's fighting career. It parallels the one we call Bruce Lee. All right, and the fact that both of them got into fights at a very, very early age in their childhood, right? In their preteens, teens or preteens, and they both were beaten. When they got beaten, they went to their parents, and they somehow found their way to a coach, a trainer, a teacher. Okay, so one was Muhammad Ali went to I think the policeman told him to go to a boxing gym if he wants to learn how to box, to fight, you know? And because somebody stole his bike. So the policeman told him, yeah, you know, if you know how to fight, you want to get your bike back, you know, go to the boxing. Go find you know, because he got beaten. He lost a fight. He got beaten and somebody took his bike. So as a kid, your first time you get smacked in your face, you know, it's kind of shocking. You don't know exactly what to do, you know? So he was advised by someone older, go find a way, you know, to retrieve your bike, but you got to know how to fight first. And Bruce Lee, I believe, is similar. I forgot exactly, but he got beaten, and then he went to look for a teacher to teach him how to fight. Right? So both of these superstars, real fighters, you know, they started out due to
very young,
a defeat. Yes. You know, and and wisely, right? Because wisely, because they knew that they didn't have the skills. So let me go find a way to train. I, on the other hand, when I got beat down, I went and got beat down again, until I became a very good fighter. You know, the hard way. I wasn't as wise as they were, you know? So.
Yeah. Well, I found a short little bio about him on biography.com, and it says Ali was born on January 17th, 1942, in Louisville, Kentucky, and his birth name was Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr.
Mm-hmm.
That's it kind of sounds like a European name.
Yeah.
Very classy, very classy. At an early age, young Clay showed that he wasn't afraid of any bout inside or outside of the ring. Growing up in the segregated South, he experienced racial prejudice and discrimination firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
At the age of 12, he discovered his talent for boxing through an odd twist of fate. After his bike was stolen, Clay told a police officer, Joe Martin, that he wanted to beat up the thief. Well, this is in quotes, you better learn how to fight before you start challenging people, Martin reportedly told him at the time. In addition to being a police officer, Martin also trained young boxers at a local gym. So Clay started working with Martin to learn how to spar and soon began his boxing career. In his first amateur bout in 1954, he won the fight by split decision. Clay went on to win the 1956 Golden Gloves tournament for novices in the light heavyweight class. And 3 years later, he won the National Golden Gloves Tournament of Champions, as well as the Amateur Athletic Union's national title for the light heavyweight division. Interesting little tidbit there
Mm-hmm.
that he learned to fight with a cop. And I mean, even if you think about it, keeping this in context, he grew up in the South, like in the South, where there was segregation. So they're
Mm-hmm.
already there without anyone physically touching him. There was a lot of racial tension.
Mm-hmm.
And so the tension within himself didn't it didn't diminish him. It didn't intimidate him. It sparked something in him to resist that type of pressure and defeat. Now, it didn't say whether the kid who stole his bike was white or other,
Most
but
likely.
but but it struck something in him to not be defeated, to not be a victim, you know. And so he sought a mentor. He sought advice. And so looking at this, even as a young kid, now someone would say, oh, you know, fighting is not good. It's not good. But this type of fighting is good because he fought for first of all, he needed his bike back. And I can relate because I've had a bike stolen and it does some things on your mind. It
I
really
did too.
does.
I did too.
It is when you're in a city where you have thousands of bikes
Mm-hmm.
riding past you, it's like my eyes can't stop looking for my bike. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you pray for the person. The day I catch who stole my bike, you're in trouble. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So he didn't want to stand for injustice, and he did not want to be picked on and bullied. And then he was ready. He was readying himself to defend what he believed. Young age was ready to take a stand. This is not right. You cannot do this. And when I see you, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. And he was preparing for it. So, you know, I'm not saying, okay, yeah, you know, you're at your job and you hate your boss. You know, we're not talking about that kind of fight. We're talking about internally having a conviction about standing up for what is right. Because sometimes people will just suck it up. It's like, okay, it's just material things. It doesn't matter. But there's a principle there. There is a lesson to learn. Like, no, it's not okay. It's not okay. And I think even with boys, they individually have a desire to defend themselves. And I think having the right mindset will also help gauge them to learn when and how to pick their battles, so that what they do is not impulsive and it's not reckless or self-destructive. There has to be some guidance. This child sought guidance. He didn't just go and start street fights. I mean, he could get killed. God forbid there's someone with a weapon. He had to learn how to defend himself, and he did it with technique. He didn't do it with impulse. And I think a good coach would have told him that. You don't just go in and you're not reckless. You're not flailing. You got to know your opponent. And I think as we read more, you'll hear some of the things that he's learned, or how his mindset was very, very keen, very focused.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in order to be a boxer, you gotta you learn real quick that your mindset has to be on another level, right? The way you would approach your training is most likely the way, not most likely, actually, it would be the way for you to go and fight in the ring. So if you're not extremely ambitious in your training, you're not going to be successful in the ring, because you have to beat your body to submission so that it can train the mind to endure the pressures in the ring. Okay? I used to box, not professionally, but I used to go and train with an Olympic champion.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Interesting.
So I didn't, he used to tell me that I do have the physique, I do have the body, and he told me that I didn't have, when you box, though I started a little late, he said when you box, your body can't, your body takes in your body gets once you start training to go and compete, after a while, your body gets what do you call it? I forgot the word.
Conditioned.
Well, conditioned, but it also begins to tear.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not, you can tell a body of a child or 18-year-old, a young person. Sometimes if they started boxing very, very early, you can tell their body and that a person who doesn't train professionally, you can tell the two different bodies. You understand? And as this person who trained this hard, as they get older, you can see that the tear and what do you call it? Tear and
wear and tear.
Wear and tear. Exactly. Yeah. That's the word.
Yeah.
Wear and tear. You can always tell, So he knew that I had the body that didn't have the wear and tear. Even though I have street, skills as far as fighting, street fighting is not the same as boxing in a ring. It's two different worlds, two different, skills. But yeah, it's
and what in terms of like the fight itself, it's quoted that during his career, his record was 56 wins, only 5 losses, and 37 knockouts. That was his achievement before he retired from boxing in 1981. So that's a lot, 56 wins and only 5 losses. Wow, that's incredible. Only 5. And like as we learned before, if he ever lost, if and when he lost one of his fights, he would do a rematch later and win. He'd go back and revisit, which is brilliant. But he also had other types of fights going on, because this is him, in his youth, learning, sparring, fighting. But then there were some other tensions too. Like as we learned, he grew up in the South where there was segregation. Um, it says that at some point during his boxing career, during the Vietnam War, he was supposed to be enlisted to go to fight. And from what I understand, he didn't want to go. And like when you have people um, being enlisted in the army, I think it was mandatory. I think when you got that letter, you didn't even have a choice, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was mandatory. That's why he got he was arrested. Um, and he was stripped of his boxing titles because
Yeah, he was drafted. He was drafted.
Yeah, he didn't want to go along with the nonsense, with the shenanigans.
Yeah, so this was a different kind of fight that happened in his life. Like it says in 1967, he was drafted into the military, but he refused to serve on the grounds that he was practicing to be a Muslim, a minister. And because of his religious beliefs, it also was preventing him from fighting. So his career was taking off, and he also had converted to Islam. And this type of fight, because of course boxing in the ring is different than pulling out a gun and blowing, shooting away. That's murder there. There's, depending on how people look at it, it's has mortal consequences. So he didn't want to do it. And because he took a stand against going, they said they arrested him for committing a felony, that it was a felony to resist a draft.
Yeah.
And he took it.
And usually, I think they will give you like 5 years. I think they'll give you like 5 years.
Yeah, it said that he was committed. They said he committed a felony, and he was stripped of his world title and boxing license. That was pretty harsh. That's pretty harsh.
That's a sacrifice. That was a sacrifice.
So, but yes, it was a sacrifice, but that's him taking a stance against what he believed. He was willing to be stripped of that because he took a stand.
And most of the time, these stars, when they get drafted, they don't really go and fight in the front line. They just put them like in the back end where or he can go in and do exhibitions for for boxers. But it was political. They wanted to use it. This is what the devil does. He uses your own people against you. Okay, he uses your own people so that he can, in his enlistment, that they were hoping that many other black people would enlist and go fight, and that was a very, very, very brutal war, a war that America lost. Okay, America lost that war. Many bodies came back home. They weren't prepared for what these people were going to do. No matter how much they bombed these people, they were not stop fighting. They didn't stop fighting. Okay, America lost that war. That's one of the most expensive war to today. Okay. Yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah, and then also those young soldiers were not able to handle the terrain because Vietnam is a jungle, and it's not. It's their land, it's their territory. They know their land, and Americans coming into the jungle, they were up against nature too.
That's right.
All the elements. But I'm proud for him for taking a stand. But this is a consequence of him taking a stand. It said the U.S. Department of Justice pursued a legal case against Ali, denying his claim for conscientious objector status, basically taking a religious stand. and he was found guilty of violating the Selective Service laws and was sentenced to 5 years in prison in June 1967, but he remained free while appealing his conviction. So he fought it again. You know,
Yeah.
he took a stand.
Round
They
two.
stripped him of his life. Yes, I know, right? He wasn't going to be like, oh man, behind bars.
Yeah.
You know, that would be a whole nother interesting story too, because he probably would be fighting in there too.
Yeah.
So
And what
yes.
and keep in mind, white America hated him even more. They hated. Okay. This is when you know this is white supremacy at its finest. Okay? You notice whenever a black person makes a stand, you notice it's always collectively a white mob, government, right? They'll come after you.
Ready to take him down.
Yeah. Always. Now, if your people stand along with you, that's when they back off. We black people, you gotta learn to collectively, when one of your kind is intentionally, and you always know when it's intentional, when it's collectively a white mob coming after your people, okay? Because it's never any other group. Asians don't do that to us. Yeah. It's never any other group. So.
Yeah, and you know what is interesting too in terms of the parallel, like, you know, when we think about the Messiah, right? And on his way to be crucified, it drew a crowd. I mean, some people he healed are, you know, people who he had encountered with, personal relationship with. And then you had the scoffers, the mockers, the people who are jealous. And so trying to strip him of his title, strip him of his confidence, strip him from his mindset. He made up his mind and he stood by it and was willing to go to jail for it. But they didn't throw him in jail because he fought that too. You know, and it's like, despite what is coming at you, to stay strong, stay convicted, don't be moved. Yes, it is a big sacrifice. I mean, he earned those titles. You know, I mean, imagine going to this happens unfortunately to lawyers or doctors, but you didn't go to law school, you didn't go to medical school, put in all those hours to lose your license over a faulty case. Because sometimes people, you know, make false claims saying malpractice this or you did this to me, and they're really suing you for your money. But you've earned your licenses, you've earned your degrees. And in this case, for him to earn those, he physically got a beating for it. He earned it. He earned it through all of his blows. And so he fought the system, the corrupt system. I call it corrupt because people should have a choice whether they want to enlist in war, you know? It's like, who are you to tell me to like go send your son to war? See how that goes. It's usually the blacks that they send out. You know, it's not to say whites don't go, but I'm just saying, why is it always the poor people that are sent to war? You know? So here it said that he remained free while appealing his conviction. And unable to compete professionally in the meantime, Ali missed more than 3 prime years of his athletic career.
Yes, 3 prime.
But he returned to the ring in 1970 with a win over Jerry Quarry, and the U.S. Supreme Court eventually overturned the conviction in 1971. So he won that fight.
Yes.
So it's Ali versus the Supreme Court, and he won, and he didn't serve any time in the jail.
Yeah,
so,
it would not have been of any benefit for them to imprison him. It would not look. It would not have looked good internationally, you know, because at that time, Muhammad Ali was the most famous face, and that decision he made of not going to war catapulted him to another level. All right, because not only in the socially, but in the sports world, because you have to understand that time that he made that decision is when people used to get lynched. Okay, people were black people couldn't walk on certain side of the street. All right, if you look at a white woman the wrong way, you will most likely got lynched or beaten. Okay, so he was making those decisions at a time when it was already stressful for people, for him out of the ring. Okay, so that catapulted him to another level of stardom, right? Amongst his peers, other fighters. Because most of them, they were fighters in the ring, but outside of the ring, they weren't really fighters like that. It took a special person, took a special person to come along and stand, and become a political figure apart from a boxer.
That's right. I think he discovered that was a part of his character that made a transformation, because, a traditional boxer might be just focused on their status. It's like, I've been training since I was 12. I've, the stats of, the wins and losses, and then how many belts you've received. I mean, that means a lot to them. But for him, the principle of standing up for what is right meant perhaps even more than the belt itself.
Yes,
it's like, it did. How spiritually, the Bible talks about the crown of righteousness. He wore his crown.
Hallelujah.
And he kept his crown. It's like they were trying to strip him of his confidence, strip him from his worldly awards, but they were not able to strip him from his mindset.
And then the ancestors came out. The ancestors came out of him.
Yes, they didn't know they unleashed the beast. Because that was just the beginning.
Yeah, the ancestors came out.
They couldn't shut him up. They could not shut him up.
Yeah, ancestors came out. That's what happens. Listen, that happens. You have to remember, in this country, especially in America, nothing was given to the black man. The black man beat the crap out of white man in this country. Okay, so every reform that's politically, like, in their laws, right, is because they got beatings. And family, the same way Ali was giving these people beatings in the ring, that's the same way you have to go. The way to beat this devil is for you to go and learn your history, know exactly what transpired on the continent, in the West Indies, South America, wherever our people have gone, okay? They can only oppress us for so long. And then we must come out. And the scripture is very clear. We'll always come out victorious. Okay?
That's right.
The final bout is not here yet. It's not here yet. But it's coming.
That's right. And for those who are so focused on material, when you endure defeats, if your goals are just for the things in this world, you're going to be looking at losses like, I have this, I don't have that. I used to have this and I don't have it any longer. And these are things that are just temporary. But the mindset and your determination to overcome and to rise above your circumstance is way more valuable than the thing itself that you're fighting for. When I say thing, meaning the material thing. Because what if you don't get that dream job? What if you don't get that dream husband or wife? What if you don't get that dream house? Does that mean your life is worthless? No. You know, here's one of the quotes that I'm going to share a lot of his quotes, but here's one of the quotes that he said. You don't lose if you get knocked down. You lose if you stay down.
That's right. That's right.
So whether down means depression, whether down means negative mentality, down means whether you are in a rut and you find yourself complacent, like I don't know what I'm going to do, and I give up, like I don't want to do it anymore. You know, that's your choice to stop fighting. But I think the fight is perhaps worth more to you spiritually than the thing that you're actually fighting for. So you will value your fight if you value wisdom, because you might not gain that. And I'm not trying to cast a doubt that you won't go after your goals and achieve them. What I'm trying to say is that sometimes we feel defeated because we didn't get those things. Yeah, I didn't get it, so what's the point in trying? And the point is that renewing your mindset, you have victories, but you have to acknowledge those victories. Because in his case, he achieved those goals and they stripped him of it, but that didn't defeat his mindset.
No, they didn't knock him off at his purpose.
Yes.
You have to envision your purpose. You have to contain your purpose, you know, keep it, protect your purpose. Yeah.
Protect your purpose. And here's another thing he said. He said, don't count the days, make the days count.
That's right.
So he didn't coast through his life to see what happened. He made every day count.
That's right.
So you won't be in a stagnant place in your life if you are actively renewing your mindset, renewing your goals, renewing your approach to things, renewing how, or perhaps even your circle of friends. Because sometimes you just need to let things and people go so that you can surround yourself with people who have positive mindsets.
A different mindset,
you know?
Yes.
You know, we're gonna be doing a Narrowcast about pessimism and being surrounded by pessimists. You know what it is to the title is going to be called Crabs in a Barrel. Like, how are you going to progress if you're surrounded by this? Okay, so you have to be around winners, people who have winning mentality, so that you can succeed. Because you have to survive. You have to rise above your circumstances, but you also need to rise in and elevate your thoughts. You have to elevate your thoughts. And he won that battle with the Supreme Court. Other people would have been like, please, I was just whatever.
Afraid of losing it all, right?
Yes. And then and this is televised. He's a public figure at this point. And people are watching him. Oh, he's going to go to jail. Oh, he's going to go to, and the talk and the gossip. And he was like, no, I'm not going. And they have interviews of him saying why. He took his stance against fighting the people. Like, what's the purpose of this war? And he called it out. He called it out. Why are we having this war to begin with? Because you know how America is with our wars. There's always an interest when it comes to wars.
Yeah. And also the consensus at that time was even the students, the students in California some kids got shot at a campus because they took a stance. At that time, many people didn't want to go to war. They didn't see the purpose of going to war, Well, what was it? But, the government was checked by the citizens. They didn't want to hear it. you know. But every so often you're gonna get the government is gonna get a pushback, you know.
Yeah, and it's important for us, we the people, to stand up for what is right too. You know, we also sometimes are driven into situations and suffer as a country because of the poor decisions of our leaders. It's not your fault, but we do have a voice, and he individually stood up for his opinion, his conviction. You know, and that saved his life. Like we know a lot of people who came back from the Vietnam War were amputees.
Many.
You know, if at all. And then a lot of them were poisoned. You know, they endured a lot of type of horrors and psychological horrors.
Some of them became drug addicts. People lost their minds. A lot of people lost their minds. I had a teacher who was in high school who was a Vietnam vet. You know, Mr. Clark, we used to call him. Mr. Clark was still hyper, you know? Yeah. You can tell he was an older gentleman, but he was like, you know, physically fit, you know, and it was, Mr. Clark was he was a little bit off, you know? He was a bit off, you can tell, you know? But very sharp though, you know? So many people came back not the same. You know,
So here's another quote from Ali. He said, "Champions aren't made in the gyms. Champions are made from something they have deep inside of them, a desire, a dream, and a vision."
Yes.
So yeah, having an inner desire and a goal and a dream is what he considers a champion to be. Not so much as wearing the belt and having, you know, the gold medal. And that is the final accomplishment.
Yeah, that's the end result.
For glorious televised experiences. And of course there is value in the medal itself. But it's the fact that you go through all of the trials.
Yeah,
you know, the workouts, the sweat, what they say, the blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes, right.
And make it through.
It's called embrace monotony, right? Monotony. Doing things that you it's the rigorous training, the process. Right?
The process.
Every day you're doing the same thing over and over. Again, beating your body to submission so that you can have control of it. Well, so the mind can have control over it, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because you're exercising other parts of you, like your patience, like if you're a person who is impatient, you know, it does take time to achieve those goals. You might be frustrated and say, "Oh, I should have gotten this by now." And people around you might, like, if you're single, and you have siblings that are married with kids, you're going to hear from your relatives, "Oh, you should have been married by now and had kids." Like, everyone has a different timing, and everyone doesn't have the same goal. But in terms of when you're driven to achieve a goal, somewhere deep inside of you, you have to protect that inner desire and dream and have a vision. Because other than that, you're just coasting along, going with the flow, see what happens, unprepared, you know, and that's not how a person who lives with intent lives. Like as I shared before, he said, "Don't count the days, make the days count." So he lives by intention, not by impulse, you know.
Yes.
And that's why when he was in the ring and he had an opponent that might have been stronger than him, might have like help me with the terminology.
Might have had an advantage as far as skill wise. Maybe a person was a little bit more stronger. It's usually, but for him, Muhammad Ali was very skilled, So there weren't anyone who was more skilled than him. It's just that when it came down to, he didn't have a power punch. Now, keep in mind, he did knock people out, So that's something that was always, he was overlooked, always overlooked on his punching power. Okay. He was always overlooked, but Muhammad, he knocked people out. But his strategy was, I want to get you tired first. Okay. So the person may have like a person like George Foreman, he had an imposing power, So fighters weren't strategic as Muhammad Ali was. That's what most of them lost to George Foreman or the power punchers. You have to, you have to allow a power puncher punch themselves out, as they would say. You gotta get them to go the distance in order for you to have an advantage. Keyword, event. Does not mean you're gonna win. Just so that you can have an advantage. Okay? Because if just one punch. So you have to go into that ring. You got to come out a little bit more perfect, close to perfection in order to be someone who has a power punch. So basically, it only takes them one punch. So they can go the whole entire fight with you and they can get tired and they can be, near losing. But if they connect, it's over for you. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then also too, what remains to be known and understood is that because he took a stance and he did not compromise in his thinking and in his values, the outcome was victorious because he won against the Supreme Court. How many others were intimidated to say, well, this is what the paper says, this is what I have to do, this is my civil duty. And then they didn't come back home. They didn't take a stand. Yeah. What happens when you compromise your values? Your mother is crying, I don't want you to go. Oh, your father is saying, be a man, go out there and do it. But you're the person holding the draft letter. You're the ones, it's not cowardice to say, I don't want to do it. It's your life. It's your right. It's your right to intend with intention to say no. And that's why Muhammad Ali wasn't the only one. There were, like you mentioned, there were other protesters that were against this war. And now, fast forward in the 20th century, we see veterans sitting on the streets homeless with signs and not getting their needs met after they've done their due diligence, as they did their civil duty. They came back, they're homeless, they don't have good health, they don't have good benefits,
they don't have a home.
They don't have mental health support. I mean, it's not to say the benefits are not there, but they're up against a lot of challenges to receive them.
Which is crazy to me, which is crazy. See, this is why you can't serve the devil. The devil doesn't give you anything.
Yeah.
Okay? He doesn't give you anything. Yeah, it's crazy. So it's like people went and most of them gave their life. Most family lost someone in the family. Some people came back, and with missing limbs. Many families were broken up because people were addicted to drugs. Most of those soldiers came back addicted to drugs. Because in the war, it was a long war, many years, many lives. America lost the war. There was no way. Today, there's still people, there's still payment due. There's still an expense because of that war. Lost.
Yeah. So this is what happens when you compromise in your values. It's like, well, so unfortunately, they did didn't stand up for what they believed, or maybe they thought it was the right thing. But there's a cost. There is a cost. But keeping things positive, here's a funny thing he had shared in terms of his training. Okay, the mentality of training, because the process. He said he hated every minute of training, but
yeah.
but he said, I don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion.
That's right.
So he hated training. He hated the training. And then there's another funny thing he said. He said something funny. Let me see. He said something about, okay, I lost the quote. I'm going to paraphrase now. I'd like to quote verbatim because, sometimes it just hearing it, how they say, straight from the horse's mouth. He said something about counting. He goes, I don't count. The only time I count is when he starts to feel physically tired. That's when he starts counting. So, like sometimes, like if you jump rope, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He counts at the end. And the mindset behind that is when you start feeling tired, he is kicking in that overgear of you got to keep going.
That's when it
some
gets
people
real.
count. Yes, some people count from 1 to 100, say I'm done. But it's like when he starts physically feeling the burn, it's 1, 2, 3. He's pushing, he's going. That's what you call going the extra mile when the body is physically tired. His mind starts kicking in to say, basically, you can do it. Don't give up. Don't stop now. Yes. And I just love that. I love that.
That's when this quote comes to life. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. All right? That's when the quote makes sense for me. It's like, yeah, exactly. You've got to push yourself to a point where it transforms you, right? Not the experience transforms you. Okay? You don't transform the experience transforms you. All right? That's the way things work in life. Your experiences is going to mold you into either the person you wanted to become or the person that you don't want to become.
Yeah. I found the quote. It said, how many push-ups do you do? I don't know. I only starts counting when it starts hurting. So when it starts hurting. So, like family, we shared a lot. And I know that there's so much more. It's like a treasure trove of quotes because he is so full of wisdom. But what's really beautiful is that he has the mindset, the spirit, the spirituality, and the confidence, like all of the elements of a champion. This is not just someone who's walking around showing off his gold belt. His experience, the highs and lows, the victories, the fact that he lived with intention is what makes him an overall champion. And it's definitely something that inspires me because when you go through life and you go through a lot of challenges, it's like, wow, how do you feel today, Jade? Well, and then there's this pause. It's like, I've had a couple of blows, but I'm here, but having that the victory of every day is a new day. Every day is a new challenge. Every day you got up, you rose. When you lie down and you're sleeping, you rise. And so when you live with intention, it's like you're about to embark on a new day. Yesterday is yesterday. And so when you live with intention, you can set new goals. Or continue, but with renewed spirit, with renewed mindset. And so that's my intention with this message, with this Narrowcast today, is just to inspire all of our listeners. Amen. No matter what the challenges you're going through, no matter where you are in your life, even the elders, don't give up. They're still fighting you.
That's
You have a
right.
purpose.
That's right.
You know,
Uh,
the Creator put you on this earth. You've won many battles. You have a lot of wisdom, and
That's
we
right.
encourage you to not hold those your words of wisdom back from the youth, because
Mm-hmm.
we need to hear your stories. We need to hear the victories. We need to be inspired.
Mm-hmm. Yes, family, definitely, definitely. It's been a joy, and it's always encouraging to hear or to recant or recount an experience of a warrior like Muhammad Ali. He was a warrior in the ring and out of the ring. And may his
Mm-hmm.
life be a blessing unto you. May Baba Mungu be a blessing unto you. You have anything else to say, Jade, before we end?
No, I just want to say thank you so much. Keep having the fighting spirit,
Mm-hmm.
have the heart of a champion, and let no one steal your crown, the
Mm-hmm.
crown of righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
Stand firm in your conviction of doing what is right, because the enemy is there to seek, conquer, and destroy. And they
Mm-hmm.
also mock you as you fall. But every time
Mm-hmm.
you rise, every time you never give up, you are a champion. And so I want to say, from one champion to the next, thank you for joining us, and continue to inspire others.
Peace, peace,
Peace.
peace, peace.